Hello, today I am going to recap the movie Quicksilver. Quicksilver was released in 1986. In the beginning of the movie, they do show a bunch of pictures of bike messengers, and not all the characters that they do show end up in the film, which was kind of disappointing because you're showing pictures of them. So I had assumed that I would get to meet them, especially since there were more female pictures in the beginning, but those characters did not end up in the film. So that was a little disappointing. The movie starts with Jack inside a cab and he is heading to work. He sees a cyclist next to him while riding to his job in the cab. He sees how quick the cyclist is going, and the cyclist is kind of teasing him like, look at me, like I'm going faster than your little cab. Jack is like, all right, bet, pay for the cab to go faster. So the cab starts speeding up. Of course, the cyclist makes it because there's traffic. So the cab eventually stops because there's a car in front of him, and his hat kind of flies off. So then Jack gets off the cab, picks up the hat, and pays the cab driver, and is like, I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna walk. And he's kind of looking at the hat like, wow, I suck. But no, he does end up going to work and he works at the stock market. So he does a bad trade. He loses all his money plus the money of his savings of his parents. So ashamed, he leaves Wall Street and he decides to just focus on something else since he doesn't have any money. And he goes to tell his parents what happened. When he enters the house, his dad is there and his mom isn't. So he tells his dad that he lost all the savings, their savings as well. So the dad kind of looks like he's gonna kill him at first, but then kind of says like,
Gonna take a minute, catch your breath, get right back.
Like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, would you like something to eat? Like, he just tries to not show that he's mad, even though he was kind of sad that he lost all their money and his own money. So the dad tells him like, oh, stay though, stay for dinner. The mom was gonna cook or whatever, that she'll be back soon, just stay. Jack is kind of like, no, I'm gonna go. Like, I have other people to see, and the cab is outside waiting for me. Jack then leaves, kind of thinks about it, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna pay the cab and go back in and stay. But when he goes back in, he sees his dad kind of on the dinner table crying, like just crying. He's like never seen his dad cry, so he was like feeling more and more crappy. So he leaves. And then once he sits in the front porch, his suitcase like rolls down the stairs and all his paperwork flies everywhere and he's just feeling defeated. So they show him walking around the streets of San Francisco in different clothing, like less and less suited up. So while he's walking down the streets of San Francisco, he bumps into this thrift store and he sees this bike. He's like, oh my God, I still have that hat. I'm gonna put on that hat and get that bike and become a bike messenger. So that's what he becomes, a bike messenger. Once he gets that bike, we see him just cycling around San Francisco. What I don't like about the film is that they never really show him progressing or showing like him not knowing how to ride fixed gear, because it is a fixed gear bike with no brakes. So they just show him like killing it off the bat, like he was born for this. And eventually he's drinking coffee and a cab comes out of nowhere and like pushes him off the road. He ends up going down like a parking lot ramp and hitting a taxi. And I kind of think it's karma, since the movie does start with him inside a cab, making that cab driver race a cyclist who also got pushed to the sidewalk. So I thought it was interesting that he ended up hitting a cab. So this will be the last time we see this character, and we never see him actually give him back his hat. I had hoped that we reconnect with the character throughout the film. I guess he gets to keep his hat. The film then transitions to the dispatching bike messenger center called Quicksilver. So he starts doing mess work, and we got Murray here, who is the the dispatcher. So we have two characters. One is named Hector, who's been here for a while, and then he's kind of showing Terry around. Not many people last in this type of service. Most people end up leaving, and it's just not suited for them. So she's like, like, no, I could handle this. Like, I could do this. Who doesn't even have a bike. So Hector kind of hooks it up and is like, it's okay if you pay me back later on because she doesn't have money. And she kind of shares about her background, where she's from. She shares that her dad is from like Chicago and he's a pilot or whatever. So she shares her family background. He hooks her up with a bike and a bag. So he's kind of like, all right, so now I'm going to charge you interest and slowly you'll pay me back. And she's kind of like, really, interest? And he's kind of like, so we get to see the bike messengers outside of Quicksilver. We see Morpheus from The Matrix, but his name is Voodoo in this movie. And he's kind of like a little much of a bully and cocky, arrogant type. And he comes in and he's like demanding someone for coffee to go get him coffee and kind of does illegal work, delivering illegal goods. So he's like, oh, money, money, money. Like he's all hyped about all the money he has. So Hector is really good friends with Jack. So we see Hector introducing Jack to Terry, and automatically you could tell that Terry finds Jack interesting and vice versa. Jack is like looking at her too in a certain way. So we kind of assume that they're gonna be like love interests to each other. Then the film shows Jack's loft and his girlfriend who's like a ballet dancer and trying to mock her in a sense while she's ballet dancing because she told him like, I'm busy right now. And he's like, oh yeah, so look at this. And it's like he starts doing tricks. Again, we never got to see him practice these tricks. He just was born to be a cyclist out of nowhere. So he's doing these tricks and they're like romancing while she's dancing and he's on his bike. And so then the film goes to Terry at a diner eating and realizing that she don't got any money to pay for her food. So there's this guy next to her and his name is Gypsy. He's not a good guy. He kind of is the villain of the movie. So of course he pays off her bill. Not realizing who he is, she like just lets him, right? She thanks him and then leaves. And like I said, he is a villain. So we kind of get to see who Gypsy is after he pays Terry's bill. He gets in his car and he has two men with guns talking about a deal, X amount of money, and that the deals he had been doing have been getting corrupted. So he goes to find Voodoo, who takes care of his stuff, his deals, his deliveries, and he kind of like presses him like, you've been messing up with my deals, like I'm not gonna use you anymore. And Voodoo's like, what are you talking about? Like I haven't been messing with them. And he's kind of like, I'm not using you anymore for deliveries. So we see Hector and Jack kind of like strolling around, getting some food to eat, and they go to this hot dog stand. Hector tells Jack how his goal is to save enough to open his own hot dog stand. Jack kind of just shakes his head like kind of like that's your dream. That's your big dream, to have a hot dog stand? And he's like, yeah, like I want to have a hot dog stand and I'm going to get it. And Jack kind of like smiles at him like, outside of Quicksilver, all the bike messengers kind of doing tricks, which was like probably my favorite scene of the movie, is when they're just all doing tricks and stuff. That was really cool to see. So then Jack does meet up with his stockbroker partner to let him know like he's no longer going back, and he's trying to convince him to go back to the market. He feels like he could pay the rent and not have the fear of losing money. He was also expressing how much happiness, like how much more happy he is to just cycle, and how the good feeling he gets riding fast and going left when it says right, like that's what he says. So he's just letting him know that he's not going back to Wall Street. So then they show him at the diner with his bike messenger friends. Hector is asking about loans, like how to take out a business loan, like to start his hot dog stand. Jack is giving him advice, and you see Voodoo and kind of tell him like they're not going to give you a loan to a Hispanic and a bunch of other slur words. So he kind of tried to downplay what Jack was giving him as advice. So during all that, it shifts to how Voodoo and Jack should go on a race and how they're all gonna bet money on who wins to San Francisco's hills and start a race. So then during the race with Voodoo, he does add some breaks because, yeah, I mean, those hills are crazy. But I'm pretty sure this is the only time there are brakes on his bike. You let me know if I'm wrong. And during the ending of the race, we see Gypsy, who follows Voodoo and hits him with his car. And Jack kind of looks over at Gypsy, like keeping note of what he did. So Jack explains to the other bike messengers, like, why would he just hit him? Like, he could have avoided hitting him. But Jack kind of gets warned how you don't want to know who Gypsy is.
Be happy it wasn't a closer race, or there would have been 2 funerals.
So that was the end of Voodoo. Rest in peace. So then we have Terry at Quicksilver at the dispatch area. Maury's like, oh, you got, a request for you to pick up an order. She gets sent to an address that's an abandoned place. So she gets there all confused and she's like, what the hell? Like double checking that she's in the right place. And then Gypsy shows up with his car and he's like, it's me. I'm the person. So then Gypsy gives her illegal goods to deliver for him. And she agrees probably because he's paid her food bill. And during the trade of Gypsy and Terry, Jack is like watching all this. He kind of wants to show that he was watching, so he then follows Jack home, stays outside all day till the night, kind of showing I know where you live as a threat. So you see Jack doing his work and we see him going up the elevator and he like presses a bunch of buttons in the elevator so he could catch the elevator while he's done picking up or dropping off. You see him getting along with the ladies, getting numbers, just showing him work. Then he sees Terry downstairs. He kind of like waves at her and then she gets hit by a truck. Not terribly. She ends up on the sidewalk, but that's how they kind of get to know each other more. Her wheel gets kind of dented, so he's like, where are you going to get your bike fixed? I could help you. I could help you fix it. And she's kind of like, no, I got it. Kind of like, no, don't need anyone's help. But she kind of does need his help. So he's like, I got you. And during all this, you see Gypsy like riding his car around, watching them. So he takes her to his loft where he fixed her rim. And she's kind of like looking around and judging him and saying like, you look like this wealthy, rich guy. And kind of like looking through his space, which was kind of rude, especially if he's like helping you out. So they show her kind of like looking around and asking about, who are you as a person? Like, were you this rich guy or are you rich? And he like tells her how he basically lost it all. And she's kind of like, if I had all that type of money, I would never lose it. And it's like, girl, like he's fixing your wheel right now. So after Jack fixes her wheel, he kind of warns her about Gypsy and Jack tells Terry to become a waitress. She's like, no, I don't really enjoy touching people's food. But really it's just to warn her about Gypsy. And then he gets on his bike and he like starts showing off doing tricks and stuff like he did to his girlfriend. And his girlfriend walks in while he's doing these tricks in front of Terry. He introduces her as a friend to Terry. And you see the girlfriend kind of get upset and like, oh, now I'm a friend. That's how it is. I'm a friend now, huh? So then he kind of just brushes it off and he's like, oh, I guess the dancing wasn't well or something like that.
Tough day in Dance City.
The girlfriend's just like, so then it skips back to that diner that they always go to, and Hector shows up in this like light blue suit and he's all excited to go to his interview for his loan at a bank, and everyone's kind of like making fun of him because I mean the suit is very unique and there's like ruffles everywhere here. So whatever, they're all making fun of him and Jack is like, I told you to get a suit, not a tuxedo. Just tell them that you just came from a wedding and just tell them that, and trust me, it'll go better if you say that you just came from a wedding. Jack does go see his dad and the dad is kind of like, you showed up on a bike? You came from the city, all the way from the city to here on a bike? Like, kind of just judging him that he's on a bike. And Jack is just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, but I'm here, like, I'm here now. I'm here now. I'm here now to fix. And his dad kind of fixes cars for money. So he's just trying to help out the dad. And he already feels guilty as a human. So, like, he can't afford to take a cab at this point. He's just trying to meet rent. So then the mom shows up like, hey, and she kind of like says hi to Jack, her son, like disappointed, doesn't really show excitement. So you could tell that these parents just have like strong judgment. So the mom's like, oh, like dinner's ready or whatever. So Jack goes inside and talks to his parents. And while sitting with his dad, the dad kind of places a Wall Street newspaper on Jack's side. And then he has his own newspaper, kind of like to look at the stock market and stuff, like pushing that narrative to go back, judging the fact that he became a bike messenger. So then Jack confesses that he actually came back in that day that he left and saw his dad crying. And he's like telling him, like, I've never seen you cried ever in my life. And the dad gets, I guess, ashamed because he gets up and he's like, you just make me so mad. It just seems like the family does not know how to talk about emotions. So instead, he goes to have some dinner with Hector, and that's when Hector tells him, I didn't get the loan, and Jack is just like trying to come up with a way to help him get the money. So then Jack goes to his girlfriend who had invited him out to go out with her and her friends, these two other guys who she introduces Jack to. The introduction's kind of all about him making money, not really about his current job, which is a bike messenger. She introduces him as this like famous stockbroker or whatever. And he kind of feels ashamed, like, that's not what I do now. Like, he tries to like say the truth, and she kind of looks at him like still pushing the narrative like he's still this stockbroker who's rich. And so it gets like awkward and she looks like annoyed. So when they're about to leave and her friends are like catching a cab, she's like let's go, I want you to come with me. Like, and he's like, oh no, I don't want to leave my bike and leave it out for too long because someone will end up taking it. And she was like, leave it. And he's like, no, I choose the bike. We kind of never see her again. So I consider that as like a breakup. So then they show Jack going to the deli and he sees Gypsy. As soon as he sees Gypsy, he like kind of drops the milk that he needed and goes to meet up with Hector, where Hector was supposed to meet someone to get a loan, but he ends up not getting the loan by these people. And Jack is like, I could try to get money from the stock market and like maybe use your money to get money to help him get this loan for the hot dog stand. So we see Jack going back home, doing his numbers, all these stuff that I know nothing about. So the stock market, that's what he's doing. And then he hears a knock and it's Terry. This girl has some nerves. So she's like, oh, could I stay at your couch? I won't be any bother. I'll just stay in the corner. I won't bother you and your girlfriend. Like, girl, because her friend kicked her out. So of course he lets her stay, and he doesn't like tell her about the issues he had with his girlfriend. He just lets her there, and she starts like looking around, touching around. This girl is rude. So she starts looking through his clothes and she's like, oh, where's your girlfriend? Like, so he's kind of like fed up because he's had a bunch of issues with his family. He feels like crap. He's trying to help Hector. He's trying to mess with numbers right now. And he's just looking at her like annoyed because he also got lied to by her, Terry. Terry lied about who her parents are. She shares to Hector that her dad was a pilot, and to Jack, she had shared that her parents are singers and they perform in Vegas all the time with Frank Sinatra, which is a lie. So Jack kind of tells her, like, who are you? Like, why don't you go call your parents? Can't they help you? Like, aren't they wealthy people? Why are you here in my apartment right now? I'm sure if you call them, they'll help you. So just pressing her to tell the truth. So she eventually just breaks down crying and she's like, "Well, I don't have to stay here. I'll just go somewhere else." And while going down the stairs, she's kind of like crying and like she can't get help from them. She never shares what her parents do or who are they. She kind of just makes it seem like she doesn't have anyone. So the morning comes, she sleeps on the couch while he sleeps on his table. So he's in the stock market the next day for Hector. So it happens again. He loses the money. So he loses the money and he goes outside to Hector and he kind of like shows a frown face. And Hector's telling him his wife is about to give birth and he doesn't know if it's gonna be a boy or girl. Like he's all happy and we see Hector just leaving at the train. This makes Jack more like determined to go back in and try it again. So he tries to partner back up with his partner that he had. That partner does help him out, of course. Jack gets money, he gets to help Hector, and Jack gets all this money. He gets money back and gets to give his dad money. Hector's wife gives birth. He has a boy. They're celebrating. And he gets to tell Hector the good news. So Terry's at the diner and Gypsy's outside. He kind of calls her over and she comes to tell him that she ain't gonna work for him anymore. She doesn't want to do it anymore. So Gypsy's like, "Well, I don't talk business outside of my car. Get inside." Terry's crazy for getting in the car. I would have not gotten in that car. So she gets in the car and he kind of like tells her that she's being taken to a party. Says no, she ain't that type of girl. He gets pissed off and kind of grabs her around and she so happens to have like a blade and cuts him on the leg, which sets her free. She runs into the diner, into the bathroom. Gypsy goes in and finds her in the bathroom stall, drags her out, and she gets lucky that there's other bike messengers that she works with walking in the diner. So those bike messengers save her, and then they all go back to the Quicksilver office. Gypsy goes rolling in with his car. They kind of start throwing bottles at his car, throwing things at his car. That's when he shoots one of them, trying to stop Gypsy from getting Terry. So Terry goes to Jack's house and Jack isn't home. So she waits upstairs by his door and she sees like a shadow coming in and she's like scared that it's Gypsy, but it so happened to be Jack. And then Jack tells her that to stay inside and she's like letting him know someone was shot, Airborne was shot. Airborne was a bike messenger who was shot while trying to help her. And he's kind of like, "I'll take care of it. Just stay inside." So we see Jack cycling around, making Gypsy go through a bunch of different alleyways and just different areas. His car is like getting wrecked while all this is happening. Then eventually it gets to a construction site, ending up driving his car off levels of floors. So I'm not sure if he dies, but I mean, it was a pretty hard impact. So then they show Jack back in his apartment with Terry, and he's just like tired. I mean, he really risked his life for her. So the movie ends with Jack and Terry meeting up. Kind of tells her about what he's been up to. He has new offers, and she shares how she's going to become a paramedic and she wants to be taking these classes to be a paramedic. Jack asks Terry to grab some pizza and she's like, "Chinese food," and they start like debating what to eat and stuff. They're like, "Actually, let's go to Hector's hot dog stand." So the movie ends with them eating hot dogs at Hector's hot dog stand. So that was the end of the movie. Let me know what you thought, and I'll be dropping a video soon of bike shops. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Catch you on my next video. Bye.